Engineering students, if you were gone the day that we started lesson 1.2.5, here is a quick catch-up video on how to create this toggle button object here on the first page. So let's start off by opening your Unit 1 folder and making a new document called 1.2.5 More Modeling Features. So I'm in my Unit 1 document. Let's hit the blue Create button, create a document, 1.2.5 More Modeling Features. And so we do want to create this toggle button, and there are a couple of specialty features. We're going to end up using a chamfer tool for this cut edge at the bottom, and then we'll also end up using a fillet. Yeah, I know that's a weird pronunciation, but it's a fillet in engineering. A fillet tool to create these rounded edges on the top here. So a fillet ends up adding like a rounded edge, or it creates a rounded edge for safety features and lots of things. So let's begin kind of from the top down, because this is basically a cylinder is kind of how it begins. So I'm going to start by putting a circle on the top plane. And yep, that's 40. We're just going to make it 40 inches. So on this top plane, let's go ahead and add a sketch. Rotate it to look at it from the top and make a center point circle from the origin. And let's dimension that circle for a 40-inch diameter. There we go. Looks perfect, just like it looks on the paperwork. So there's my circle, and I do need to extrude this specifically from bottom to top. This is going to be a 30-inch extrusion. So if we hit extrude, select 30 here, hit return to give us kind of a preview, and then green check that. So here is our perfect cylinder. And then we've got a couple things. We could add that peg on top to start with, or we could work on chamfering that bottom edge. And like I said, it really is an edge. It's that ring that's going to have material cut away all the way around it. It's not a face. We're not chamfering a face. So let's look for chamfer up here in our options. And sure enough, there's chamfer showing like a cut. It creates beveled edges or faces. Specify a measurement type like offset or tangent, and chamfer type, equal distance, two distances, or a distance and an angle. Individual edges can be overridden to change the direction. Okay, so I'm going to click on that chamfer, and specifically there are two measurements. It's a degree, 30-degree angle, and a 5-inch width. So let's go back in here and change the chamfer type. It may have come up as equal distance, so change that to distance and angle. So we've got 5 inches in there. Let's change that to 30 degrees. And then sure enough, it gets mad about, okay, you haven't picked any entities. So go ahead and click on the red box. And now let's rotate it around and make sure we just pick that ring or that edge at the bottom. So it gives us a preview of how this is going to look. And if we look at it, right, this angling that's happening here doesn't quite look right. Right? It's supposed to be 30 degrees. So what's happening is it's the wrong direction. It's making a 30-degree angle up here, like vertically, instead of horizontally. So I'm going to click in the box that says direction overrides, and I'm going to click on something that is horizontal, right? You might have to kind of pick around. We want something orange to pop up. So once you select something horizontal, then the 30-degree angle ends up in the correct space. Okay. So that takes care of the chamfer at the bottom of this. And sure enough, there's that ring that appears as a hidden line on that top view. So that takes care of the chamfer. For the peg at the top, right, it starts out as something square, right, or basically rectangular, centered right on the same center of the circle. And it's 10 inches tall, 10 inches wide, and then specifically it is centered on that. So we have some options. Let's go ahead to that top face of the object and hit sketch, rotate it around, and there's our origin. So we can create a rectangle, specifically a center point rectangle. It lets us start with the center point and ends with a corner. So if I click on that center, notice how it drags around so it stays centered on that. And then we can dimension 10 inches wide, still centered, and 10 inches tall, still centered. That's one way to do it. It's not the only way, right? Let's say I make a sketch and I choose the original corner rectangle and I can set it to be 10 inches wide, and I can set it to be 10 inches tall, but it's not in, it's not in the middle. Well, I can dimension from that center point to any side, to any edge or any corner, and I can set that to be 5. And I can go vertically and set that to be 5. So that's another way to create a centered square on this object. Both ways work just fine. So if we go to extrude this box, this shape, yep, we're adding material on, and specifically the depth of this extrusion, right, needs to be 15 inches tall. So we'll change that to 15 inches, and this is our toggle button so far. So this right angle meetup, right, where the peg meets up with this flat surface, this is called an interior edge. It's basically where an L shape gets made, and that's the edge where they meet. So this is going to add a fillet that rounds off this material. So if we hover over the fillet option, we can see that rounding. And so I'm going to stay on edge here, and entities to fillet. I'm going to click on this edge, and if I drag that arrow around, right, I've got some sizing options to pick from. Now, the radius is the measurement that they're looking for here. The radius is set at 5 on the document, so we're going to change that radius to be 5. And I could do 4 separate fillets, or I could just keep adding to my entities, because I need that edge, and I need this edge, and I need to rotate around to the back side or the last side to click on that edge. So now it's this perfect 4-sided fillet, all done at once because they're all the same size. So that is one powerful tool that can apply rounded pieces that, in this case, it adds material to this interior edge to create this rounding slope. So that is how you can complete part 1.